Um, Now, you have described in earlier testimony the mechanics of what you were doing at the time that you cut your finger, correct?
Yes.
And as I understand your testimony, essentially you were in a sweeping motion, moving the glass towards the sink with your left hand. Is that true?
Well, I don't know about a sweeping motion. Maybe I indicated that with my hands. I knew I was trying to get the glass out from around my stuff into the sink, and I cut my hand at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you recall, as you sit here today, moving, and if you watch my hand, moving the glass towards the sink in a sweeping motion using the back of your hand as a leading edge?
Not using my hand, I was using a towel to do it. But I do recall trying to sweep the bits into the sink, and I do recall noticing that I had cut my hand.
Okay. So as you sit here today, you have a specific recollection of using a towel as kind of a broom, moving the glass towards the sink?
Yes.
And was the towel located on the upper right towel bar?
I don't know. I don't
inside the
recall.
restroom?
I don't recall.
Do you have Exhibit 71?
They're in order.
I just want to show you a copy of Exhibit 71. If you need to look at the original, we'll pull it. Faintly, it's better in my photograph. You want to see it. Do you see a towel bar in the upper right portion of the photograph?
I don't see it distinctively, but that appears to be one, yes.
Okay. This is a little better. Just look at mine, just so
Yeah.
see if it refreshes you. See the
Yeah.
what appears to be a towel bar in the upper right portion of the photograph?
Yeah.
The photocopy of the photograph. Okay. Is that where you got the towel from that you were using to assist you in sweeping up the glass?
I don't recall. I don't even remember this room.
You don't remember where you got the towel from?
It was in the bathroom. That's all I recall.
Was it a hand towel, or a bath towel where you dry yourself off, or a washcloth?
I don't. It was just a small towel because I also used a little toilet paper. So it was just a towel. It was just whatever was sitting there. I don't know if it was a towel I had used the night before or a towel that I just grabbed at that time, but it wasn't what was on my mind. So I don't recall.
You just characterized it as a small towel. When you use that term, are you talking about a hand towel or a washcloth as opposed to a towel that you would use to dry yourself off?
Yes.
Okay. So we're able to say, at least with some degree of definity, that it was either a hand towel or a washcloth that you used to sweep up the glass as you sit here today.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And you pulled that towel, strike that, you used that towel to sweep up that glass before you ever cut yourself. Is that true?
I think during the process of doing it, I cut myself.
Okay. And were you holding that towel in your left hand?
I believe so, yes.
And were you applying the towel to the surface of the countertop, moving the glass towards the sink?
At one point, yes.
And was that the process that you were engaged in at the time that you cut your finger?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And did something happen while you were doing that that caused you to cut your finger that you recall as you sit here today?
I was going back and forth to the phone, and I don't recall if someone was waiting on the phone for me or if the phone had just rung, but I was going back and forth to the phone. I do recall that was what was going on during this particular time.
When you were going back and forth to the phone, are you talking about before you ever began to clean up the glass, or after you had started cleaning up the glass, you went back to the phone for some reason?
I believe through all the time I was in the room, once I received a call from the LAPD, it's almost a continual thing until I left the room.
When you
That
say
I was going to the phone, back and forth to the phone.
back and forth to the phone from the bathroom?
From everywhere. from everywhere. Whatever was going on, whatever I was doing, I'd be on the phone, I'd be off the phone, I'd be on the phone, I'd be off the phone.
Okay. Other than packing up your toiletries and perhaps cleaning up and shaving or brushing your teeth, was there any reason why you had to go back and forth from the restroom to the phone?
It was just basically packing and just trying to get everything together.
Okay. And do you, as you sit here today now, do you have a specific recollection of cutting yourself after you began the process with this towel of moving the glass into the sink?
I know it was during the time that I was cleaning up the glass that I cut myself.
Okay.
And, but it was at that particular time that it happened.
Now, as you sit here today, do you have a specific recollection after you began the process of cleaning up the glass of going from that point to the phone, either to make a call or to receive a call that was coming into the hotel room?
Well, I know I was back and forth to the phone, yes.
Well, when you say, I know I was back and forth to the phone, what I'm asking you for today is a specific recollection, whether you have one or not, of going to the phone after you began the process of cleaning up the glass that you've just described for us.
Well, I know I was back and forth to the phone, and I know that I believe it was in the midst of all of that I cut my hand. So I know I was back and forth to the phone before, and I would believe after. Yes, yes. So I can't tell you what phone call I was coming in or going out, or if I was on the phone at the time it happened, but I do know I was back and forth before and after it happened.
So in your mind, as you're sitting here today, you have some recollection of attempting to clean up this glass and then at some point moving towards the phone. Is that true?
Yes.
And did you cut your finger before you made any movement towards the phone?
I don't know. I don't get the question, so I don't know.
Okay, well, you've described a process where you were moving glass into a sink, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
And then you're talking about having to go to the phone to use the phone either to make a call or receive a call, right?
Yes.
You have a recollection of that as you sit here today, right?
I know I was back and forth to the phone, and I know during the midst of doing all of that, I cut my hand. At what point that happened, I wasn't thinking about at what point that was happening. I was trying to get out of Chicago, and I was trying to get to L.A.
I understand all that, Mr. Simpson, and all I'm asking for is what you know today. What's your recollection as you're sitting here today in this deposition?
My recollection is, during the course of trying to get out of Chicago, I was on and off the telephone. In the midst of all of that, I cut my hand at some point, and I was still back and forth, trying to get out of Chicago, trying to get a flight out, trying to get someone to take me to the airport, and in the midst of all of that, I cut my hand. That is my recollection.
Okay, well, let's see if we can break it down a little bit, maybe stir your recollection. Focusing on the time period that I'm focusing on where you began to move the glass into the sink, as you sit here today, do you have a specific recollection of going to the phone?
I know I went to the phone.
No, I didn't ask that. Just do you have a recollection in your mind's eye right now of doing that? If you don't, just say
I don't.
Okay. Do you have a recollection of, in your mind's eye, as you sit here today, of what you were doing as you cut your finger?
No.
Okay. Do you have a recollection of feeling any pain at the time that you cut your finger?
I don't have a recollection, no.
Do you have a recollection as to the position of your hand at the time that you cut your finger?
No recollection, no.
Do you have a recollection as to whether your hand was moving at the time that you cut your finger?
No recollection, no.
Do you have a recollection with respect to where your hand was in relationship to the towel at the time that you cut your finger?
No.
Do you have a recollection as to whether your finger began to bleed after you cut your finger?
At some point, obviously, it did.
Do you have a specific recollection of that
Yes.
as you sit here today?
Yes.
And do you remember where you were in the hotel room when you first recall seeing any blood that you associated with this cut?
In the bathroom.
And when you first saw blood associated with the cut, where were you located in the bathroom?
It's just in the bathroom. It wasn't a big bathroom, so at some place in the bathroom. I wasn't sitting on the commode, and I wasn't in the shower. I was standing in the bathroom,
Okay.
a relatively small bathroom.
Were you still cleaning up the glass when you made this observation that you had in fact cut your finger?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't recall if I was at that point or not. I know I grabbed some toilet paper, and I believe went back to the phone. But once again, it was a continual thing that was going on.
Okay, is it fair to say then that as you sit here today, at the time that you cut your finger, you have no recollection as to whether you had completed this process of putting the glass into the sink or whether you were still involved in that process?
He
That's
didn't
correct.
Well, he didn't say he was putting the glass in the sink. He said glass chips in the sink.
That's what I meant, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's correct.
Okay, when I use the term glass, you understand I'm talking about the glass particles as a result of glass breaking.
That's fine.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, and then when you cut your finger, you observed it was bleeding, right?
Well, I saw blood, yes.
And you saw the location of the blood?
It was on my hand.
Okay. Did you get a little squeamish when you saw it?
No, my mind was on other things that was more pressing.
Okay. That was Nicole, the loss of your ex-wife.
He's gone over that 15 times.
Well, I don't know whether it's his travel arrangements or his ex-wife. What was on your mind that was more pressing?
You're really being an asshole right now. My wife, the murder of my wife.
And then when you saw that you had glass on your, strike that, when you saw that you had a cut on your finger, you put some type of toilet paper on it?
I grabbed something, yes.
And what did you grab?
Toilet paper.
Okay. Did you also grab a washcloth?
Maybe.
Maybe meaning you don't recall?
Correct.
Okay. So you have no recollection as to whether you used a washcloth in order to dab blood off your finger?
Correct.
You have a specific memory, however, of grabbing some type of toilet paper?
Yes.
Okay. And did you apply that to your finger?
I don't know about applied it. I wrapped it.
Okay. How did you wrap it?
Just wrapped it.
Did you tie it off?
No.
Okay. Did you somehow affix it to your finger to stop the bleeding?
I don't know if I stopped the bleeding or not. I just wrapped my finger with some toilet paper, yes.
Okay. At any time after you first noticed that you had cut your finger, did you ever get back into your bed?
Every time I talked on the phone, I was on the bed, yes.
Okay. Did you ever get back into the bed, under the covers, and pull the covers up?
Well, I didn't have to. The covers were flipped back.
Okay. My question is pretty specific. After you cut your finger, did you ever get back into the bed as though you were sleeping, pull the covers back up?
No, I
over on
fell
top?
back on the bed a few times while I was waiting on the phone. But the covers are all flipped back at the time.
Okay. So when you got out of the bed, did you pull the covers down in order to get out?
Probably.
Well, do you have a specific recollection as you sit here today?
I probably did.
Well, when you say you probably did, do you have a recollection as to whether, one way or the other, whether you did or you didn't?
No.
Okay. And you recall, however, at some point when you were on the phone, sitting on the bed, is that true?
Every time I got to the phone, the bed was next to the phone that I was using.
Okay, so every occasion where you would get on the phone and talk to someone about travel arrangements or whatever, you would sit on the bed?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall when you were sitting on the bed whether you were sitting on a bedspread or bed sheets?
I believe the sheets.
Okay. And would you sit on the edge of the bed?
It was, as I said, while I was waiting, sometimes I fell back on the bed. Sometimes I was just sitting up on the bed, whatever.
Well, when you say you were sitting up in the bed, what do you mean by that?
Just what I said.
What does that mean, sitting up in the bed? You got physically on the bed and were sitting up with your back against the headboard?
Sometimes my shoulder may have been leaning up against the headboard, yes.
Did you ever get on the bed and physically lie down?
Yeah, I laid back on it a few times.
Okay, and you were sitting there laying back as you were waiting for phone calls or something?
Now, sometimes they had me on hold, and sometimes they were trying to find things, whatever they were doing on the other end. Sometimes I was waiting for a call, but I don't think I sat on the bed while I was waiting for a call. I think it was normally when they were trying to find flight arrangements or whatever was when I was actually on the phone.
Do you ever recall on any of those occasions sliding your left hand underneath the covers?
Sliding? No.
Yeah.
No recollection of it.
Were you eventually successful in pushing all the glass into the sink, or most of it?
From what I can see, yes.
When you say from, are you talking about your recollection now?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a recollection at some point looking into the sink and seeing most of the glass being successfully deposited into the sink?
No.
Well, what are you saying?
I have a recollection of not seeing any glass that I could further injure myself on. So when I was collecting my things, I didn't see anything. Anything I saw, I kicked into the sink.
Okay. And when you say that you didn't see the glass on, you're talking about the countertop?
Correct.
If you have a specific recollection as you see here today of putting your toiletries inside the toiletry bag after you successfully put the glass in the sink?
I don't know if that was after or before or what. Maybe some of it was before, some of it may have been after.
Well,
But I don't have a memory as the exact sequence of events at that time.
okay, let's just focus now on packing up the toiletries and see what you recall and what you don't recall as you sit here today. As you sit here today, do you recall putting any toiletries into your toiletry container or luggage prior to the glass breaking?
No,
Do you recall putting any of the toiletries into the container that you contained the toiletries after the glass was broken?
no,
Okay. And do you have a specific recollection of putting any of the toiletries into the luggage after you cut your finger?
specifically no.
Okay. So is it fair to say that you have no recollection at all with respect to the sequence that we're talking about when you packed your toiletries? Is that
I
fair?
know that I was trying to pack it without the glass. You know, I know that it was broken around my toiletries, but specifically when I took my deodorant or something and put it in there, I can't tell you when that
Okay.
was.
So you have some recollection, however, of packing some of the toiletries while working around the glass, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know
Or
what
moving
you...
the glass.
Excuse me?
Or moving the glass and then putting it in, one or the other.
Do you recall what you were putting away at that time?
Whatever was in my overnight bag.
Do you recall, if you have a specific recollection of what you were putting away at that time?
Whatever was in it, toothpaste, toothbrush.
No, I just ask if you have a specific recollection. If you don't, just tell
Specifically,
me.
no.
When you cut your finger, did you look at the finger and assess whether you thought it needed some type of sutures?
No,
Okay. You didn't examine it for glass?
no,
Did you see any glass particle that you believe was the source of your cut?
no,
Did you look to see whether you could identify the piece of glass that cut your finger?
no.
And then you left from the hotel room and you went back downstairs, is that true?
Yes,
And that's where you got the Band-Aid?
yes,
And you got on the plane and headed back home to Rockingham, true?
yes.
You mentioned in some of your earlier testimony that you thought you were crying on the plane. Remember that?
Yes.
Were you on first class again going back?
No.
You were in coach?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember at what point you were crying on the plane?
No.
Do you remember how long you were crying for?
No.
Do you know whether anyone was sitting, strike that, do you recall whether anyone was sitting next to you as you were crying?
Well, there was a guy sitting 2 seats over from me. I know that.
Okay.
A seat over, I should say.
Okay. And did he comment to you at all as you were crying?
He commented to me a few times during various times of the trip.
Well, do you have a recollection as you sit here today as to whether this gentleman made any comment to you as you were crying, headed back from Chicago to your home?
Today, no, not specifically.
You said no, you don't recall.
Yes.
You've made the statement in the past that all of Nicole's friends knew how much you loved her. Is that true?
I don't know.
Have you ever made such a statement?
I may have.
Okay. Is that something you believe?
Yes.
Is that something you also believe with respect to the Brown family?
Yes.
And
At least Lou and Judy Brown, yes.
okay, it was your belief as of June 13th that the Brown family, specifically Judy and Lou, knew how much you loved Nicole.
Yeah, I think anybody that's ever spent time with Nicole and I knew we loved each other, yes.
Okay. And the basis for that statement is that if they spent time with you, they would have a chance to see how you are together, how you were together, and formulate what you believe is the correct interpretation that you were good together. Is that true?
No, you
Well,
asked me about
that's
love.
pretty
together.
argumentative.
I don't think there's been any doubt in Judy and Lou's mind that Nicole and I loved each other.
Okay. How about Denise? Do you think she had, is it your understanding she had the same belief?
Well,
I never thought about what Denise thought. Denise was never, and I were never like, close.
Okay. Did you believe that most of Nicole's friends had the same opinion of your
The
relationship?
people I consider her friends, yes.
Okay. That they felt you had a good relationship together?
Her friends, yeah. I didn't know that we had our problems, but anytime you split, you got problems. But I would say if you went to her close friends, the people who knew her over the years and spent time with us, that they would say we had a decent relationship, yes.
Decent relationship?
Yeah, yeah.
And when you were coming back from Chicago, you attempted to contact the Browns, right?
Yes,
And Denise answered the phone, correct?
yes.
And the first thing she did, one of the first things she said was to accuse you or suggest that you were somehow responsible for the murders. Is that true?
Yes, she was yelling, but that was the implication that I got, yes.
Okay. And did that surprise you when you heard her suggest that you were somehow responsible for the murders?
Yes.
And did it surprise you because you thought she would know, based upon your relationship, that it's something you could never do?
Didn't surprise me for any other reason. It was just a surprise that she was talking to me the way she was, yelling at me the way she was. It surprised me, yeah.
Did you ask her whether she had any information that was the basis for her accusation?
I couldn't. She hung up.
Did you ever say anything in response to her when she accused you or suggested that you were somehow responsible for the murders?
I couldn't. She hung up.
How long was this phone conversation?
Quick.
Under 5 seconds?
I don't know. She just was yelling, and then she hung up.
And did you ever have occasion to, did you have a chance to deny to Denise that you were responsible for the death of Nicole?
She hung up. I couldn't say anything.
Did you ever call back after she hung up?
Yes.
Okay. Was that on the same plane flight?
Maybe not. I talked to Judy, I believe. May have been Lou.
When you heard this comment from Denise, were you at all concerned that somehow Lou or Judy shared the same view, that you were somehow responsible for the death of Nicole?
I didn't give it any thought.
Did you ever attempt on the flight back to find out whether they shared that view?
No.
Who were the good friends of Nicole that you believe felt that you and Nicole had a strong relationship?
When you say strong relationship, you have to
Decent,
say
as
they
you
knew
described.
that we loved each other. I don't think there's any doubt that Nicole and I loved each other, even when we were apart. We always said we loved each other. But the people I think were her good friends were Susie Keel over the years, Pam Schwartz, Cora Fishman. I would say of all of her friends, the ones that were her friends for years and were still her friends at her death, that these were the people who probably knew her best and knew her longest.
So the three women that you identified would be the people, the friends that would come to mind of Nicole's that would have some knowledge of the quality of your relationship
Yes.
and that it was a good relationship
Yes, for the most part, yes.
and that you loved one another.
Yes.
Cora Fishman ever suggest to you that you were responsible for the death of Nicole?
No.
She ever ask you whether you were responsible for the death?
No.
She ever ask you whether you had any
Well,
knowledge?
that she might have asked me, not then, but maybe later on, but I'm not sure. I can't answer that question. She may have asked me later on.
Do you have a recollection, as you sit here today, of some conversation or discussion with Cora where this topic came up, your possible involvement in these murders?
I think when I was in jail, I may have talked to Cora once when on the phone,
Okay.
and she may have said, "You didn't do this," and I said no, and then we talked about whatever there was, you know.
And did you call her, or did she call you?
No, I had to call. I had to make the call.
Okay. And you remember having a discussion where she said something to the effect that you didn't do this?
She may have said, "O.J., you didn't do this, did you?"
Okay.
Or something to that effect.
O.J., you didn't do this, question mark?
I can't quote it. That was the gist, I believe, of what she asked.
Okay, well, what I'm trying to discern, it was a question as opposed to a statement.
Yes.
True?
Yes.
And given your understanding of what she knew of your relationship, were you surprised that she would even ask you the question?
No.
You weren't surprised.
No.
And were you not surprised because of information that had come out implicating your involvement in the murders?
No.
What was the reason why you weren't surprised?
Because I was in jail and accused by the prosecution of committing this crime.
So by the mere fact that you were in jail and accused,
The mere fact.
Mere fact. If you're in jail for 15 months, it won't be a mere fact, I can assure you that.
well, did you know at the time you're going to be in jail for 15 months when you had this discussion with Cora Fishman?
I was in jail.
how long had you been in jail at the time you had the discussion with her?
Maybe 3-4 months.
Okay. Had the prosecution already begun?
Well, I don't know when you say we had the prosecution. They
That's a
had,
bad
they had
question.
arrested me and they had me in jail.
Let me ask it a different way. Had you already gone through a preliminary hearing?
I don't recall. I believe so.
You believe you'd already gone through the preliminary hearing at the time you had this conversation with Cora?
I believe it was 3 or 4 months into my incarceration. So that would have been, I believe that would have been after any hearing.
Was this the first time that you had spoken with Cora after the murders?
Other than commiserating with one another at the wake, I believe, yes.
Okay. So you had a brief discussion at the wake, right?
Well, it wasn't a discussion. She was crying and I was hugging her. And she was, and it was more of a commiseration that, whatever you say at times like that to one another.
Okay, other than that occasion that you just described, this was the second occasion where you had a discussion with Cora Fisher?
This was the first occasion I had a discussion with Cora Fisher. Yes.
And did you call her specifically to discuss your alleged involvement in the murders?
I believe I called her just to find out what was going on. I may have asked her what had been going on.
What do you mean by that?
I felt I was out of the mix as what was going on with the girls, at that time. And I was like everybody else trying to find out what was going on.
Well, did you call Cora because you wanted to find out what she would say if she testified?
No.
Did you want to find out what she recalled about your relationship with Nicole?
You know what I wanted? I remember specifically, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't deluded, and I think I may have said this to her, because this may have been a lot more than 3 or 4 months, because I know things were coming out that Faye Rusnick had been saying. And what I just wanted to hear someone say that the Nicole that I knew, that I wasn't this far off base, that the Nicole I knew wasn't the person that I was hearing. And some of the things that I was hearing at that time, I wasn't buying, and I just needed to hear from someone who I felt was a friend of Nicole's, have the same, that we were talking about the same person.
Was the impetus behind your call to Cora the information that had come out in Facebook?
I believe so. I know it was just a lot of, and most of the negative stuff I heard was from Facebook, or Faye was saying, and it was just disillusioning.
And the negative information that you're referring to in Faye's book was information that relates to you beating Nicole?
No. It was about things that Nicole, this Brentwood hello and all of this horrible stuff that was just not Nicole, just not the Nicole that I knew.
I missed that one, the Brentwood hello.
Yeah, well, read the book, you'll know what it is. I'm not going to discuss it.
Yeah. Well, was any purpose behind your call to Cora to try to corroborate or check claims by Faye Resnick in her book relative to your battering of Nicole?
No.
None whatsoever?
None whatsoever.
Didn't come up in the conversation?
For what reason? There was never any battering of Nicole other than 89, and Faye was 4 years before she came into our lives. So whatever Faye would say on that area, would not know.
Maybe you asked Cora whether Nicole had ever said anything to her?
Sorry.
Pardon me?
Perhaps you asked Cora whether Nicole had said anything to her about these alleged incidents. Did you
No.
ask her something like that?
No, Nicole and I had one incident. That was in 89. I knew Cora knew about that. So there was no reason for me to talk about it.
So you deny that there was any discussion between you and Cora at that time regarding alleged incidents of spousal abuse, true?
There was none.
You were present when Mr. Kalin testified, right?
Yes.
Do you remember his description of the bag that was behind your Bentley?
Yes.
You remember him describing it as kind of a knapsack?
Yes.
Do you own a knapsack similar to what Mr. Kalin described?
No.
Have you ever?
A book bag? No.
Not a book bag. Anything that's reasonably similar to the description of the bag that Mr. Kalin gave at his deposition.
Well, his description was much like the bag that we saw in the picture.
Okay. He described something like a college book bag or something of that nature. You recall that?
Yeah, but I don't. The backpack things, I've never owned one. No.
Okay.
My kids have, but I haven't.
Well, when you say your kids have, did they have one at your residence at Rockingham as of June 12, 1994?
I doubt it, but they may have.
It's possible that one was around the premises.
It's possible. I guess.
Do you have a recollection as you sit here today seeing one around the premises on or before June 12, 1994?
What is it we're
Yes.
talking about? He's
Yes.
talking about
Well, kind of a back.
Kid's
a
backpack.
backpack. He's talking about a
yeah.
backpack that mounts on the back.
Yeah. Yes.
You have a recollection of seeing that?
Yes.
Where do you recall seeing one of those?
On my kids' backs, in my kitchen, in their rooms. Whenever they're going to school, that's what they carried.
When's the last time you have a recollection of seeing a backpack similar to what you just described?
Specifically, I can't say.
Do you know whether your kids had one in their rooms at Rockingham?
No.
When you say you've seen one in the kitchen, was there a backpack of that type that was stored in the kitchen?
No, but whenever they came in from school, that's where they dumped everything in the kitchen.
Talking about just temporarily sitting on the countertop?
Yes.
Mr. Kalin also described a outfit that you were wearing that included, he used the term jogging suit or something of that nature, that had a white zipper down the front. Do you recall that description?
Yes.
Do you own a jogging suit or a jogging top that's similar to the description that Mr. Kalin provided?
No.
Do you own any garment that has a white zipper down the front?
I don't know.
In a dark background, I take it.
No. Let's just talk about the white zipper. Do you own any garment that has a white zipper down the front?
I don't know. I would have to look at all my things.
I mean,
and see if
you mean
has a white
something that,
zipper.
pardon me, you mean something that not, a jacket may have a white zipper, a windbreaker. I mean, is anything, is that
I
what
want to
you-
include that. I want to include a windbreaker or a jacket or something that you would put on your upper body, and this is as of June 12, 1994, that has a white zipper down the front.
I may have, but I have no. I'd have to look at all my clothes and see.
Well, do you have a specific recollection as you sit here today of owning such a garment?
No.
Do you have a closet downstairs where you keep jackets like that?
No.
Okay. All of your clothes would be kept upstairs in your
Yeah,
bedroom?
I may have some things in my entry closet that I just had her put in there because of this cold weather, but my things are normally kept upstairs in my closet.
Okay, when you say I had some things in my entry closet that I had her put in there, you're talking about asking JG or someone to put
Yes.
in there?
Yes.
Is that something you did recently?
Yes.
Okay. As of June 12, 1994, did you store any jackets or garments in your entryway closet?
I mean, coming in from being out, sometimes maybe temporarily, I may have put something in there, but basically my stuff is kept in my closet.
When you heard Mr. Kalin describing the garment that he observed you in, did you know what garment he was talking about?
No.
Okay. Did you believe he was mistaken when he was describing a garment that you wore to McDonald's having a white zipper?
I knew he was mistaken
Okay. And why did you know that?
because I knew that's not what I had on.
Okay. Because you knew you were wearing a different type of garment.
Yes.
Had you worn anything that entire day that resembled the garment that was described by Mr. Kalin in his deposition?
I can't say yes or no because I can't. The way he talks, I don't know what he perceives when he sees things. So I can't say.
Well, he described something fairly specifically, a jogging top or jogging suit with a white zipper. My question to you is, at any time on the 12th, do you recall wearing anything that fit that description?
Jogging stuff, no.
Well, any type of upper body garment, whether it be a windbreaker, jacket, jogging suit with a white zipper, anything that's similar to that?
I don't know if it had a white zipper, but I had on a jacket.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what color was the jacket that you had on?
Blue.
And when did you put that jacket on?
To go to McDonald's.
Okay. Do you believe that may have a white zipper?
Doesn't seem like it does, but it could have.
Okay. So as you sit here today, we're not clear one way or the other whether it has a white zipper, right?
Correct.
Is it a windbreaker?
I think it could be used as a windbreaker, yes.
Okay. Well, can you describe, when I say windbreaker, talking about kind of like the polyester type material, is that what this material is made out of, or cotton, or some other
Yeah,
material?
I'm sure it's cotton.
Okay, so it's a soft cotton material?
Yes.
Okay. And is it a jacket that you put on, or?
Yes.
It's like a sweat jacket?
No.
Well, what is its purpose? I mean, help us with this.
When you play golf, if it's a windy day or maybe you get a little rainy, you put this on.
I see. So it kind of keeps you warm, but has makes it, you're able still to swing a golf club.
Yes.
Is it something that you purchased at a golf course?
I don't know.
Do you know where you got it?
No.
Did it have any particular insignias on it, Riviera or anything of that nature?
No.
And it was a zipper in the front?
Yes.
Okay, and so you could zip it up if you wanted to make yourself warmer,
Yes.
theoretically? And was it dark blue or light blue?
A little lighter than what you have on, but, you know, blue.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't ocean, it wasn't aqua blue, but blue.
Well, this to me is a dark blue suit. Is that
It's a little lighter than that.
A little lighter than that?
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't as light as sky blue, was it?
No.
Okay, somewhere between dark blue and sky blue?
Yes.
And where did you get that jacket from?
What do you mean?
Well, did you get it from your closet?
Yes.
Okay, upstairs?
Yes.
And is it the first time that you recall putting it on that day prior to going to McDonald's?
Yes.
And were you also wearing dark blue pants at that time?
My golf pants, yes.
Okay, those were dark blue, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you had this jacket zipped up, you would have had dark blue pants on and a somewhat of a dark blue top on, correct?
Correct.
And you don't recall the color of your shirt, right?
No.
And is that basically how you were attired when you went to McDonald's?
Yes.
Okay. And when you got back from McDonald's, did you take that jacket off?
Yes.
I'm going to call it a jacket, so
Yeah.
I'm clear, okay? Do you recall what you did with that jacket?
Hung it up in my closet.
Okay. And did you put it on a hanger?
Probably, yes.
Okay. You still have it today?
Yes.
And if we asked you to go in your closet and locate it and identify it, you'd be able to do that?
Maybe, depending if I can get it back. You guys keep all my things. Yes. I showed it to Detective Lang, and he didn't find it interesting.
Well, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. You're concerned about us taking possession of it?
Yes. I
So-
can't get nothing back from you guys.
Assuming we didn't do that, you'd be able to go in your closet and locate that jacket?
He wouldn't do it unless you get a court order, I can assure you.
Well, let's assume that in a perfect world we got a court order and Mr. Baker was in a good mood that day and actually allowed us to go in.
Well, I won't even allow you on the property, so I'm not going to allow you to go in the closet.
Would you be able to locate that jacket, Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
And when's the last time you looked at that jacket?
Maybe yesterday. I may have wore it yesterday.
Do you have a recollection of wearing it yesterday?
Not really, but I know I wear it a lot. I even wore it here one day.
It's one of your favorite jackets?
No, it's just a windbreaker. It's a good windbreaker. Like this jacket I have with me.
And we'd ask that you preserve it and not discard it. Or
Okay.
You don't have to take any advice from him, legal or otherwise.
Okay.
We're going to ask that you preserve it. Okay?
You've asked.
How about the pants that you were wearing when you went to McDonald's? Do you remember what you did with those pants?
I think I laid them in the bathroom.
Did you hang them up?
No.
Did you tell the detectives that you hung them up?
No.
If you did, would that be inaccurate?
I took them and showed it to them. I think they were still there the next day after they took all their pictures. They were still laying there.
Who'd you show them to? Detective Lang?
Lang, yes.
And you said these are the pants that I wore last night?
Yeah.
And
Those there are the pants that I wore last night.
okay, when you say those there, you're
Well, he was with me with Bob Kardashian and Skip Taft, and we went into my closet, and we came out and walked into my bathroom.
okay. And when you said those there, you were in the bathroom when you pointed them out?
Yeah.
Okay. And where were they located in the bathroom?
They were laying across the tub, but they had evidently emptied my hamper and laid a lot of other stuff out.
And you have a number of pants that are similar to the pants that you showed Detective Lang, don't you?
Yes.
I believe they're Bugle Boy or something of that.
Yes.
And you get those for free, don't you?
Yeah, I got a lot of them for free.
Okay.
I bought them before I started getting them for free, yes.
Okay. And you have a lot of pants in the same color as the ones that you showed Detective Lang
Not anymore, but I did.
at the time?
Yes.
More than 10 pair, for example? in
The same color?
Same
No,
color.
No.
More than 3 pair?
No, maybe 2 or 3 pair.
Okay. So you had 2 or 3 pair that were the same color as the pants that you showed Detective Lang on the 13th?
That's correct.
You know the gentleman that you told us about who was on the plane next to you when there were occasions where you were crying?
Well, it was the guy, there was apparently a seat between them.
Okay. The one that we talked about, the person that was next to you with the seat in between.
Do I know him?
Do you remember that
Yes.
discussion? Okay. Did that person, do you know that person's name?
Well, I saw him in court, but I can't tell you his name right now.
Okay. Did he sit in that same seat all the way back from Chicago?
Yes.
And that was a 5-6 hour flight, roughly?
No, I would say about a 4-hour flight, 4 to 5 maybe.
Okay. And so you were basically sitting roughly in the same position next to him for about 4 or 5 hours?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson, have you ever seen the location of the socks that were found by the Los Angeles Police Department?
What do you mean by that?
The location of your socks when they were found by the Los Angeles Police Department on the carpet.
Did you
For
mean,
your
has he ever seen a picture of where they say they were found? Or was he ever in the room after he got back on the 13th and saw the socks in his bedroom where the police say they were found?
Well, since you did that, let me just ask a different question. Do you remember where you left your socks after you took them off?
Specifically, no, but I would have put them either in my shoes or in my dirty clothes hamper, one or the other.
And that would be under ordinary, normal circumstances, right?
That's virtually all the time, yeah.
And that's because you're a very neat person, right?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, and so unless something unusual is happening, you would always put your socks away and hang up your pants and hang up your shirts and things like that, right?
That's what I did all the time, yes.
Okay. Now, have you ever seen a photograph that was actually introduced into evidence at the time of your criminal trial by the prosecution that depicted the location where the police indicated or claimed that they found your socks?
Yes.
And do you recall whether you left your socks on the carpet in front of your bed when you undressed on the evening of June 12, 1994?
No, I wouldn't have, no.
When you say you wouldn't have, do you have a specific recollection as you sit here today of taking your socks off and doing something with them specifically?
I have a specific recollection of undressing in my closet, yes.
Okay. Well, do you have a specific recollection as you sit here today of taking off your socks?
I specifically remembered undressing in my closet. That's where I always undress, there in my bathroom.
Okay.
That night, I specifically remember undressing in my closet because I was also getting redressed in my closet.
Well, I'm being a little bit more specific than just undressing. I'm focusing on a particular piece of apparel. Do you have a specific recollection of taking off your socks as you were undressing the evening of June 12, 1994?
I specifically recall totally undressing in my closet. I would specifically recall putting on my white socks in my closet.
Okay. And taking off your other socks while you were in your
Well,
closet?
evidently I took them off, but I do specifically recall undressing in my closet, yes.
And when you say evidently I took them off, is it fair to say that you don't have a specific recollection of actually taking them off as you sit here today testifying?
Well, I know I didn't have the socks on underneath white socks, so I knew I took them off in the closet, yes.
You know, I'm just asking what your recollection is. I mean, there's certain inferences that you can draw, but I'm just asking what you remember as you sit here today.
I remember, other than my underwear, totally undressing in my closet, and putting on other things in my closet, except for my pants, because I had to go in my bathroom to put them on.
Okay, so in your mind's eye, can you envision, as you sit here today, reaching down and pulling off your socks?
I just remember undressing. I don't remember my mind's eye unzipping my pants, but I knew in my closet is where I changed, and I specifically recall doing that.
And putting white socks on?
Yes.
And that was done inside your closet?
Yes.
And as you sit here today, do you specifically recall exactly what you did with your black socks?
I either put them in my shoes, which is what I believe I did, or if they were really dirty, I normally would throw them in the clothes, the hamper, so they should have been in my shoes.
Okay, now you've indicated what you normally do and what you believe you did. What do you recall, if anything, doing relative to those socks after you took them off?
I believe,
If you have no recollection,
I have no recollection.
Specifically,
That's
just
all
say
I'm
that.
asking for.
I have no recollection.
Okay, so as you sit here today, you don't have a specific recollection of what you did with the socks after you took them off. Is that a fair statement?
I put them in my shoes, I'm pretty sure. If they were dirty, I would have put them in the hamper, but I'm pretty sure I put them in my shoes.
Well, now, Mr. Simpson, do you have a recollection of what you did with the socks?
Other than taking them off in my closet, no.
Okay.